Okay. All right. Hold on a second. Okay.
Jaya Churana Satya
Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Paravalikacharya, also tell us that she, Shimad, His Divine Grace Sabaya Chalanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya, Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Sayam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuradam Ki Jai Jagadava Sami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shivani Galasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shimati Bhakti Vedanta Samariti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dejatarne. Okay. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we are going to continue reading from the Jaiva Dharma. What we've been reading recently is what's called Abhideya. What is Abhideya, Prabhus? Abhideya means the process for becoming Krishna conscious. So again, to reiterate, there's Sambandha. Sambandha means the basic understanding of the philosophy, the tattvas, what's proper, what's improper, material world, the spiritual world, Krishna, the living entity, etc., and all of Krishna's energies. That's Sambandha. Yeah, Abhideya is how to become Krishna conscious. And Prayojana is the goal. Okay. All right, so we're going to continue with Abhideya. And let me share the screen. Let's see, I was just setting it up. All right. So Om Gana Timidanda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshurun Meditam Yena Tasmai Shikurve Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master's divine grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Okay. I think I have to close some of the things on the computer because I got a lot of things open. It's going slowly. Okay. That's better. Let's see. Let's put the chat window up so in case someone has some emergency, they can let me know. Okay. So let's go. So we're talking about Abhideya, and the first quality of pure devotional service. Oh, another point I wanted to mention is that this description, or these descriptions that are given right now about Abhideya, are directly from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That means the nectar of devotion. So right now we're talking about the 6 qualities of pure devotional service. And we dealt with the first quality last time, which is basically pure devotional service gives immediate relief from suffering. And suffering was defined as the karmic activity, the papa bija, the seed of desire, the kuta, and all these other different factors you can read about in the Nectar of Devotion. But now we're going to the second quality of pure devotional service, which is pure devotional service of bhakti gives you all auspiciousness. So Vijay Kumar asked a question about this. What is giving auspiciousness in bhakti, the second quality that's listed by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is actually elaborating on right now. So the Babaji said, auspiciousness means attracting the whole world, all good qualities and all types of happiness. That's an interesting definition of auspiciousness. Attracting the whole world, all good qualities. Of course, we have to understand what good qualities are. And all types of happiness. When pure bhakti appears in a person's heart, that person is ornamented with 4 qualities: humility, compassion, lack of pride, and giving respect to all beings. So if someone does not have these 4 qualities, we can understand they have a way to go. We're not going to criticize them because they're supposed to be humble and compassionate and not be prideful and give respect to all beings. So they have a way to go in their progressive path. So that's really important to understand. So again, humility, compassion. Humility means basically not to think less of yourself, but to think of yourself less. And also to be more tolerant than a tree and ready to offer all respects to others. Compassion for others. Compassion is not simply sympathy. It's trying to understand others' suffering. Lack of pride, understanding that whatever qualities you have, Krishna is just lending them to you. Whether you are beautiful or handsome or strong or famous or intelligent, all these things actually are being lent to you. Qualities, Krishna says, on the ability of men. And respect to all beings. Yes, because we see we're all quality one with everybody else. Thus everyone in the universe shows attraction to him. So in other words, like Prabhupada attracted everybody. I mean, sometimes people were a little demoniac, forgive the expression, and they weren't attracted by Prabhupada because they were covered up. But anyone who was an honest person would be attracted to Prabhupada. The person with bhakti easily manifests all good qualities of the jiva. Bhakti can give all types of happiness. If a person desires, bhakti can give material happiness, the happiness of impersonal liberation, all the yoga siddhis, bhukti, mukti. Bhukti means Sanskrit, mukti means liberation. Since the devotee does not want the 4 vargas, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, that means mundane religiosity, economic development, lust, and liberation, he receives the highest bliss from bhakti. I was reminded about a class I listened to, was it yesterday? Prabhupada was giving, he was talking about Prahlad Maharaj. And of course we all know the story that when Prahlad Maharaj was offered benedictions by Lord Nrsingadev, he said, I am not a merchant. So he did not ask for anything for himself. Ultimately, he asked for mercy for the conditioned souls, and particularly for his father, because of his compassion. But the interesting thing Prabhupada mentioned in this class, I thought it was quite interesting, that Prahlad could have asked the Lord not to kill his father. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Why didn't Prahlad Maharaj, having compassion for his father, say to Lord Nrsingadev? And Lord Nrsingadev would have listened to him because pure devotional service controls Krishna. So why didn't he say, my dear Lord, please let him live. He's my daddy. And the reason that he didn't is because he understood the best thing for Hiranyakashipu was to be purified in that way. In the same way, Prabhupada compared that to the best thing for grandfather Bhishma was to be killed in the battlefield, and for Drona. So, because he probably used that in the context of a Bhagavad Gita class, dealing with the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna was asking, how can I kill these people who are worshipable? They're gurus. Prabhupada said even the father is considered a guru. And actually, not Prahlad Arjuna said, sorry, not Prahlad Maharaj. So Arjuna said, how can I kill these people? And Krishna just said, basically they've done something religious. We got to protect society, and you got to do it. Prabhu. Babaji, so here, Babaji said, when the happiness of Rati Bhava for the Lord manifests a little in the heart, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha quickly become insignificant. In other words, when you get Krishna conscious happiness, you just like say, what is this other happiness? People have all these concepts of happiness. Having a lot of money, a beach house, or something like that. But really, happiness comes from within. It's from within, Prabhus, not external stuff. The more external stuff you try in the search for happiness, the more you want to try more because you're not satisfied. But yatma suprasidate, the heart is satisfied. Babaji said, one must understand this topic well. Even though one performs thousands of sadhanas, practice, without lack of skill in worship, bhakti cannot be attained. In other words, whatever austerities or processes you do, if it's not, you don't have bhakti or love, you can't get bhakti. The Lord satisfies most people by giving bhukti and mukti. So you can worship the Lord. Oh, my Lord, give me bhukti. What does that bhukti mean? Om Jaya Jagadish Hariya, house by the sea, let everybody be nice to me, let me have plenty of money. And mukti, please free me. When he sees that person does not have a special qualification, he does not give bhakti. What is the special qualification? That we have the association of a pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. That's how we get bhakti. Not by just forcing, trying to force bhakti out. It reminds me of a situation that I may be dealing with right now, not here in North Carolina, it's another place, where someone just chants as loud as he can for as many hours as he thinks he's going to force bhakti out. And in the process of doing that, he actually commits offenses to devotees too. And so that's not how bhakti comes. Bhakti comes with pleasing the devotees from the devotees, because as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur states, bhakti is independent, and bhakti comes from the devotee, not from Krishna. Bhakti is rare in the above two ways. By actions of jnana, knowledge, one definitely attains liberation in the form of impersonal Brahman. But punyas, that means pious activities such as sacrifice, etc., one easily attains bhukti or sense grat. So, let's do some sacrifices, austerities. I want that good old bhukti, sense gratification, or material goods. But if one does not have the skill in undertaking bhakti yoga, even if one does thousands of sadhanas, one cannot attain bhakti or bhava. That's why Krishna consciousness bhakti is very rare. Now, there's another quality. Bhakti is rare. So previously we talked about how bhakti is all auspicious, and now we're talking about bhakti is rare. That's another quality of very rare. Of course, Krishna says in the Gita, two verses, Bahunam Janmanamate, Gyanapamam Prabhajate Vasudeva Saraviti Samahamadu Sudrulva. After many births and deaths, one may actually come to the point of knowing me. Also, Manusha Sahasreshu Kastit Yatati Siddhyas Yatatam Apisidam Kastit Mam Viti Tatvataha. And many people, perhaps a few, are endeavoring to know the absolute truth, and out of many of those, hardly one knows Krishna in truth. What is the swarup of Sandra Nanda Vishesha in Bhakti? Vishesha means It means the unlimited bliss. You know, wow. So this is, what is the source of this ecstasy? Overwhelming ecstasy where one faints and rolls on the ground and just forgets everything else. So Babaji answers, says, Bhakti is spiritual happiness, an ocean of bliss. If one multiplies by millions of times the bliss of Brahman, which is opposite to the happiness in the worrisome material world. In other words, the bliss of Brahman is the opposite of the happiness in this world. It cannot compare even to one drop in the ocean of happiness of bhakti. You shouldn't even try to compare. Material happiness is useless. The happiness opposite of material happiness is very dry. That's a negation of material suffering. It is very dry. You don't get material suffering or happiness, but you also get nothing. Dry. How dry I am. These two types of happiness are very different from spiritual happiness. Things which are different by nature, vijhatiya, cannot be compared. Those who have attained the happiness of bhakti experience the sarup, the form, sarup is form, of deep bliss, such that the happiness of Brahman is like the water in a calf's hoofprint, and actually compared to the whole ocean. Those who have experienced this happiness can understand it, and not others. Yeah, it's amazing how much happiness there. So now we go to the next one. So he's talking about happiness. Okay, Krishna consciousness gives unlimited happiness. And Vijay Kumar asks about the next one. How does bhakti attract Krishna? So bhakti is the only way of attracting Krishna. Babaji answers, when bhakti prema appears in a person's heart, Krishna, along with all his dear associates, become controlled by prema and is attracted by it. By no other method can he be controlled. In fact, prema is under the jurisdiction of Srimati Radharani. And Srimati Radharani's quality is she always keeps Krishna under her control. The ecstatic portion of this book, Vijay Kumar said, if bhakti is so excellent, then why do people who have studied scriptures not accept bhakti? It's good. Babaji said the main reason is that men's mind are limited when they understand using this limited mind, bhakti and Krishna tattva, which are naturally beyond the material, are far beyond their reach. In other words, you cannot perceive a spiritual factor by material means. Atakshi Krishna namadi nabhavet grayamendriya. With your senses, extensions of the senses, with your mind, which is one of the senses, you cannot comprehend spirituality. Spirituality can only be comprehended with the soul, or by the soul. But by the soul. Just like you have to have the right instrument to measure something. You don't want to measure temperature with a yardstick or a meter stick. You measure temperature with a thermometer. So you cannot perceive spirituality with the wrong instrument. These blunt senses and the mind. But the person who has developed a drop of taste on the strength of previous sukritis, Krishna consciousness, can easily understand bhakti tattva. Without being very fortunate, no one has the power to understand bhakti tattva. So by Prabhupada's mercy. Vijay Kumar says, why is logic without foundation? In other words, logic doesn't have... Anyway, it'll be answered. What does he mean by without foundation? Why doesn't logic work in any way when dealing with spirituality? Babaji said, logic has no jurisdiction in matters of spiritual happiness. It is concluded that logic cannot be used in spiritual matters according to Vedic statements. Naisha Tarkena, knowledge of the Lord should not be destroyed by logic. Kathopanishad 129 and Tarko Pratishtanat. Logic has no foundation in spiritual matters. The same thing is there in the Mahabharata, Tarko Pratishta Shutinal. vibhina. That's from the Brahma Sutras. The second quote is from the Vedanta Sutras, Brahma Sutras 2:1. I love it. Brajana said, is there a type of bhakti between sadhana bhakti and prema bhakti? So are you either doing practice or purity? What are the stages? That's what he's asking. Babaji said, there are 3 stages: sadhana, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti. Bhava means emotions, when you really get into the emotions. And parema means pure, unadulterated love. Rajana said, what are the special qualities of sadhana bhakti? So now we're getting into more detail. Babaji said, that bhakti endowed with the bhava to be achieved is called prema bhakti. So both sadhana bhakti and prema bhakti have some bhava in them. What do we say? Bhava. You have to be careful to pronounce the word properly, not bhav. Bhav means material existence. Bhav means emotion. So as long as bhakti is practiced by the senses of the bound jiva to achieve that bhava, it is called sadhana bhakti. So in sadhana, we're practicing to get that ecstasy. Rajana said, you said that prema bhakti is an eternally perfected bhava, or emotion. Nitya siddha bhava, eternally perfect bhava, emotion. See, nitya means eternal, siddha means perfect, bhava. Then how can it be achieved? The nitya siddha bhava, Babaji said, is not achieved, not produced by practice. So why are we practicing it? Manifesting it in the heart is called sadhana. As long as the bhava does not appear in the heart, it is something to be achieved remaining aloof. Actually, it is eternally situated in its perfect form, nitya siddha bhava. So in other words, you can't achieve it by simply doing sadhana. The sadhana is required, but the sadhana has to be done with the right motive, properly according to directions, and it has to be connected with service and following the directions and pleasing a devotee. That's the only way. Krishna say Tamar, Krishna dite par. The statement is, Krishna is yours. You have the power to give him to me. I'm simply running behind you, shouting, Krishna, Krishna. Brajana said, can you please clarify this conclusion? Babaji said, prema bhakti, pure bhakti, is the special function of the Swarup Shakti, the Lord's own spiritual potency. Necessarily, it is nitya siddha, eternally perfect, or eternally in that form. It does not manifest in the heart of a jiva bound by matter. Performing actions to manifest this prema in the heart by employing body, mind, and words is called sadhana. As long as that prema remains as the object of attainment by this practice, it is saja bhava. That means bhava to be achieved. Saja means the goal. The word saja means the goal. Sadhana means the practice. As soon as it manifests, its nitya siddha nature becomes clear. In other words, in sadhana, you don't have prema at that point, obviously. But the performance of sadhana is effective when it's done according to the instructions of a pure devotee. If you perform sadhana or chant mantras that have not been given to you by the pure devotee, will not be effective, Prabhu. No effect. Because sampradaya vinayi mantras tena nishpalamataha, the mantras have to come from disciplic succession. So that's why I personally stick to things that Prabhupada gave us. I don't have the adhikar to do anything different. What are the characteristics of sadhana? So the characteristic of sadhana is to concentrate the mind on Krishna by some means. Very important. The point is made that we accept everything favorable for Krishna consciousness, we reject everything unfavorable. Or the first rule, like Prabhupada said, is to always remember Krishna. The second rule is never forget Krishna. Makes sense? That's why we're called the Krishna consciousness movement. And Brajanath said, how many types of sadhana are there? So here we're going to find the same distinction that is mentioned in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion. Babaji said there are two types of sadhana. Sadhana means practice. Okay, got it. I'm translating these words again and again and again because I know some people are not going to remember the translations. That's why I do that. The Babaji said there are two types of practice, devotional service and practice. One is called Vaidhi. Vaidhi means rules, like Vidhi. Vidhi means rules, Vaidhi means the practice of those rules. And the second type is Raga Nuga, following Anuga, following the rag, or the intense devotion of a great devotee, and also being spontaneous. And now we find the definition of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. Brajanath asks, what is Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti? Babaji said, Jivas manifest two types of tendencies. Editing. The tendency which manifests by following rules is called Vaidhi tendency. Scriptures are the rules. The bhakti manifested by following scriptural rules arises from the Vaidhi tendency. Thus it is called Vaidhi Bhakti. This is the beginning stage. Everyone should follow Vaidhi Bhakti. Rajanath said, I will ask about the characteristics of raga, or raganuga bhakti, or spontaneous bhakti, later. Now, what are the qualities of the vidhi, rules of the vidhi? Babaji said, vidhi, rule, is defined as what must be done on the authority of scripture. Nisheda means forbidden. What is forbidden is defined as doing what the scriptures say should not be done. Vaidhi Dharma for Jiva means following the vidhis and avoiding the nishedas. What does that mean exactly? It's like the first two aspects of Hatha Yoga, Yam and Niyam. All right, got to define it further. First of all, restrictions. No intoxication. For us, it's very simple. No intoxication, no eating meat, fish and eggs, no gambling, no illicit sex. Okay. And this is sort of a semi-restriction, semi-positive thing. Only eating food cooked by devotees. Don't go out and buy your hamburger buns, even though it's vegetarian. Why? I mean, all these rules have a reason to them. It's not that just, we pick the rules that conflict with modern society. I've had people say this. Many of these rules conflict with modern society. Of course they conflict with modern society, because modern society is malicious society. What do you expect? What do you expect? The rules and regulations of good manners will definitely conflict with, let us say, uncivilized culture. There's certain things, like if uncivilized culture, one may not take a bath except for once a year or something like that. It's like, this is an interesting story. One time I was in France many years ago, before any of you were born here, and I stayed in some hotel somewhere, and I said, where is the shower? And they said, it was in the winter. So they said, what? The shower, or the bath, where? Banyo, I forget. Banyo is Spanish. So anyway, I said, where is it? And they said, in the basement. So I went down to the basement, and there was this big hotel. There was only one tub for the whole big hotel. Turned on the water, because, I wanted to be clean. and it was rusty. And I can understand from that. Nobody had used it for the last, at least, weeks or few weeks. So that's uncivilized. And therefore you need perfume. That's the origin of perfume in Europe. So, so anyway, so in different societies they have different vidis and nishedas, but we are interested in civilized vidis and avoiding the uncivilized nishedas. Prajna said, from what you said, I understand that following what is said in the Dharma Shastras is Vaidhi Dharma. But the jivas in Kali Yuga cannot study and determine the vidis and nishedas. Do scriptures indicate in brief the vidis and nishedas? So in other words, is there some statement because the Shastra is really complicated, Guru Maharaj? So Babaji said, it is written in the Padma Purana, 671-100, Smartavya satatam Vishnu smartavyo na kaduchit sarva vidi nishedashur ektayor eva kinkara. One should always remember Vishnu and never forget him. All vidis and nishedas are servants of these two rules. So in other words, the rules have a meaning, like illicit sex, that takes our consciousness away from Krishna. Intoxication certainly does. Phew. And what to speak of? Gambling takes your consciousness away from Krishna. What to speak of eating meat? You got so much bad karma and mode of ignorance. You're away from Krishna. And Vidi, chanting Hare Krishna brings us to Krishna. So it's obvious that the rules and regulations are given by our acharya. So there may be certain rules that were given in a different time, place, and circumstance for different cultures, for different people, for different situations. But the rules we follow are the ones given to us by Prabhupada. Got it. Remembering Bhagavan Vishnu at all times is the main vidi. The arrangements of varnashram, etc. for maintaining life follow this vidi. One should never forget Vishnu. This is the main nisheda, forgetting Vishnu. Avoiding sin, giving up materialistic persons, bad association, atonements for sin follow this nisheda. This means nisheda means what not to do. Thus all the rules and prohibitions mentioned in scriptures are the constant servants of remembering the Lord and not forgetting him. From this, one should understand that the rule to remember Vishnu among all the rules of varnashram, etc., is eternal. That's the whole point. That's why all the rules are arranged in a specific way to help you remember. Mukhabahu rupadevya purushasya shrabaisaha chatvaro yaddirhe varda gunair vipradaya pratak. Each of the four varnas headed by the brahmanas was born through different combinations of the gunas from the face, arm, thighs, and feet of the Supreme Lord in his universal form, along with the ashramas. What that means, the varnas are Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudras. So the brahmanas are primarily in the mode of goodness. Kshatriyas are primarily in the mode of passion. Vaishyas are a combination of passion and ignorance, and the Shudras are just plain old ignorance with a touch of other things, but mainly. That's how you can tell what varna someone is in, by the mode, or modes. Bhagavatam 11.5.2. Yaesham Purisham Sakshad Atma Prabhavam Ishvaram Na Bhajanta Vajananti Snana Brashta Padantyada. If any of the members of the four varnas and four ashrams fail to worship the Lord and thus disrespect the Lord, who is the source of their own creation, they will fall down from their position. So simply following varnashram without Krishna consciousness is useless. 11.5.3 Bhagavatam. Rajanath said, why do all the people in the varnashram system not practice Krishna Bhakti? In other words, why do some of the people? So Babaji said, Rupa Goswami says that among persons following scriptural rules, the person who develops faith in bhakti is qualified for bhakti. He is not attached to life of rules and also does not reject it. That's important. He maintains rules of samsara for maintaining his life, and having developed faith is inclined to practice pure bhakti. In other words, he doesn't stop following the rules, but he's not attached to them. He's only attached insofar as they facilitate his service to Krishna. Now we find many devotees, they become attached to the rules, thinking that that's what's going to make them Krishna conscious, and they don't see whether following that particular thing or not following that particular thing is going to help connect them with Krishna, or help facilitate their service, or help them preach Krishna consciousness. Like, for example, I'll give you one practical example. There may be injunctions to do a certain type of fast, certainly during Purushottam. And so those injunctions have to be examined insofar as like what Prabhupada recommended, and also insofar as whether it facilitates your particular service for Krishna. And particularly if it facilitates what we call Sankirtan. And we're not talking just like you go out in the street and you serve books or something like that, but even facilitates your assisting in the Sankirtan movement, whether by worshiping the deities or by giving class or whatever, encouraging others. You have to see the pros and cons, even of different injunctions. Yeah, that's the point. That's what Prabhupada, utility is the principle, books are the basis, purity is the force. Wow. Preaching is the essence. As a result of Sukritis for many births, this qualification rises among jivas following the rules of Scripture. The faithful persons qualified for bhakti are three types: Uttama, Madhyama, and Kanishta. Of course, these are the three types of devotees. Uttama is the topmost devotee, Madhyama is the middle devotee, and Kanishta is the materialistic devotee who doesn't have very much faith, follows like a lot of different rituals and things like that. That's Kanishta. Rajana said, there are four types of devotees mentioned in the Gita. The person who is suffering, Artha, the inquisitive Gigyasu, the desire of wealth, Artha-arti, and the person in knowledge of Jnani, are they qualified for bhakti. So in the Gita, of course, says, Chatra Vidha Bhajantikam, four types of people approach Krishna. It doesn't mean that these are perfectional stages. This is just a inspiration to approach Krishna, but later on they have to actually get bhakti. So Babaji says, when these four types by devotee association manifest faith in pure bhakti. So again, devotee association, which is the key. They become qualified for bhakti. Gajendra, Shaunaka, Dhruva, and the Kumaras are examples. So, Gajendra. So obviously they all had association with devotees. Brajana said, do devotees not attain liberation? That's a good question. What about good old liberation? I want that too. I want to get out of the material world. Babaji said among the five types of liberation, Salokya, Sarashti, Samipya, Sarupya, and Sayuja, Sayuja liberation is very contrary to Bhakti Tattva. So Salokya means living on the same planet as the Lord, Sarashti the same opulences, associating with the Lord. Samipya means to associate with the Lord. Sarupya means having a form similar to that of the Lord, like the Vaikuntha planets. Sayuja means to merge into the existence of the Lord, or to think you're merging in the existence of the Lord. Thus the devotees never accept it. Even though Salokya, Sarashti, Samipya, and Sarupya are not contrary to Bhakti, they are a little unfavorable. Wow. The devotees of Krishna never accept these four types of liberation found in Narayana's abode. Because they simply want to serve Krishna. Mama Janmi Janmani Shvare Bhavatad Bhakti Ahoitaki Toye. I mean, if Krishna wants them to have it, but they don't they don't accept the four types of liberation. They're in Narayan's abode. They'll only accept Krishna Loka. All these types of liberation in some places are predominated with happiness and grandeur. It's interesting. So being on the same planet as the Lord, having the same opulence as the Lord, having the same form as the Lord, or associating with the Lord, that's happiness and grandeur. I'm with Krishna. But a devotee is just like, I just want to please Krishna. There's a difference. If one wants those things, there's grandeur. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. In some places, they are predominated with service and prema. Like in Krishna Loka, then, one may be in the same planet, Krishna Loka, or have a similar form to the Lord, but it's a little bit different. Where happiness and grandeur are the final results, the devotee should reject them. In other words, if your own personal happiness, of course, at the same time, for immature devotees, we may use that as an inspiration just to keep them going. Back to home, back to Godhead, Prabhu. I remember we used to do Harinam, and the first thing we would chant with Harinam before chanting Hare Krishna was, back to home, back to Godhead, back to home, back to Godhead. But now I don't chant that anymore. I chant, what do I chant? Hare Krishna. So, it's just like, Prabhupada, I'm a servant. We just want Krishna to be happy. What to speak of liberation? Even the prasad of Narayana cannot attract the minds of the exclusive devotees whose minds are attracted to Krishna. Oh my God. We're really exclusive here. Oh my God. Okay, so let's try to unpack that one. Oh yeah, here's an example. The gopis, okay? Once upon a time they were looking for Krishna, and Krishna was hiding out from them. And so Krishna, in order to play a trick on them, he manifested his form as Narayan. In fact, there's actually a temple right next to Govardhan. Well, actually, it's about half a kilometer away. It's a really beautiful temple. One day we'll take the devotees there. It's called the Chaturbhuj temple. Chaturbhuj means four-armed. So Krishna manifested himself as Narayan to see what the gopis would do. And basically, they weren't interested. Of course, they followed etiquette and offered their obeisances to Narayan, dear Narayan, but, they weren't interested in him. They just said, my dear Narayan, where? They understood he was God. Where is the son of Nanda Maharaj? Please tell us. You must have seen him. You're God. I mean, you're omniscient. If you don't know, no one knows. I mean, they were asking the trees, the bushes, the creepers, and everything like that. So finally, Narayan gets asked, and I guess he didn't tell him. And then Srimati Radharani comes, and she sees Narayan, but Krishna, her love is so great that Krishna doesn't have the power to maintain his form of Narayan. And he appears as Krishna, Nandana. So, ontologically, that means by nature, Narayan and Krishna's swarups are not different. Advaita, Chuta, and Nadi are not different. But there is superiority in Krishna's rasas, the relationships. Wow. What nectar. Okay, so we are going to stop sharing at this juncture. And we are going to allow you fortunate souls to ask questions as soon as we allow you to unmute yourselves. Okay. Does anyone have a question? Lord Brahma, you have a question. You can unmute yourself.
Please accept my humble obeisances, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Can you kindly, you've explained it before, but can you help me understand what Sukruti means? Because you mentioned today also that it's based on the previous Sukrutis, one can understand Bhakti Tattva while you were reading. So, what does Sukruti actually mean? I'm
Well,
confused.
the word Sukriti, the direct definition of Sukriti, Su means good or auspicious, and Kriti means actions, okay? That's the direct meaning. Sometimes, in certain contexts, the word Sukriti will mean pious or material pious activities. And sometimes, in the other context or in some other context, it means spiritual activities or spiritual association. So you really have to understand that word according to context. It's contextually sensitive. So just like we say, when one does some service for a devotee, whether even if they don't know what they're doing, that would be called agyata sukriti, which means unknowing devotional service. So in that particular case, sukriti means good or auspicious activities uh, in terms of devotional service. In another context, the word sukriti, actually sukriti, not sukriti, would mean pious, material pious activities that give you good karma. So by performing, let's say, the karma kanja activities, that's material sukriti. And by performing devotional service, you get both of them are considered good actions or auspicious actions. I hope that's understandable. So it's actually contextually defined, the word sukriti. But in both cases, it means auspicious or good actions. Okay?
Does that mean that bhakti can be forced? I thought bhakti cannot be forced. Like if you
No,
do Sukriti,
it can't
bhakti
be
can be
forced.
achieved.
Bhakti cannot be forced or achieved by one's own endeavor. It's achieved by one's sincerity in serving Vaishnavas. So my sadhana, whatever sadhana I do, is dependent upon whether it pleases my spiritual master, Prabhupada. Like I can do so. Let's say I decide I have a really far out way of doing a really far out way of doing austerities. I'm going to stand on my tiptoes every day for half an hour and chant Hare Krishna to detach me from the body and become more Krishna conscious. It's not going to work. Or I may, or just to be more specific, I may go to the Vedic literatures and pick some austerity, some mantra to chant that wasn't given to me by my Guru Maharaj, by Prabhupada actually. For all of us, it means Prabhupada. And it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. It'll be good. I mean, it may be some connection with Krishna, but it's not going to get me the goal of Krishna consciousness, Krishna prema. So I have to examine my activities and thoughts and everything like that to see if they're actually pleasing to Prabhupada. Because Yasha Prasada, Bhagavat Prasada, Ya Prasada, Nagati Patopi. By the mercy of the pure devotee, one gets Krishna's mercy, and without the mercy of pure devotee, one doesn't get Krishna's mercy. So that's the point, So in other words, even Vedic austerities, I know devotees nowadays, they're so expert in getting these new austerities that Prabhupada never taught us and we never heard about. After Prabhupada left the planet, we got all these amazing austerities and practices and stuff like that. And then, I have this faith, Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Sakahe Sudrida Nishya, which Krishnadas Kaviraj describes as faith. I have this faith in simply doing what Prabhupada wanted, that everything will be accomplished. And I personally experienced it like that. I am a adherent of the KISS philosophy. Keep it simple, sadhu. keep it simple, sadhu. Actually, people in the mature world use that expression to indicate something else. But anyway, keep it simple, sadhu. So, who else has a question? Oh, Ramaji, you have another question.
No, thank you, Maharaj. No, I
Okay.
just want to thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? If not, it's getting time. Okay. Bye, Chaitanya, you have a question.
Gurudev, Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances.
Yeah.
Gurudev, you said this phrase about humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Could you please just explain that or elaborate on that, what that means?
Well, thinking less of ourselves would mean, I'm so bad, I'm so fallen. Yeah, it's almost like depression.
Mm,
In depression, one actually thinks of themselves more. Now, I'm not criticizing people who have depression. It's definitely a psychological state that needs to be addressed, and that's another issue. But I'm so fallen. I'm this. I'm that. I'm anyway. It's me. It's you hear them use the word I. So instead of I, it should be Krishna, 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 or thinking of serving someone else. Then you think less of yourself. You think of yourself less. Does that make sense?
mm. Yes, okay, I got it. So focus it away from the I and
Yeah,
look at in
obviously,
context
instead of
of, yeah,
thinking either I'm great
yeah,
or I'm low, or I'm fallen. You can think roughly for a second. I'm
mm,
in a fallen condition. I mean, devotees do that sometimes, but just to harp on it. Harping means just to obsess on it.
yeah,
That's not. It means you think more about pleasing Krishna, what pleases Krishna, what pleases the devotee. In other words, amanina manadena, not to think of yourself, but
yeah,
manadena, think of others and offer respect to others.
yeah. Got it. Thank you so much, Gurudev.
Okay, just one other question quickly from Krishna Priya Devi Dasi.
Jai Gurudev, please accept my obeisances. So we know, like, looking in the scriptures and finding mantras that aren't suitable for these days are prohibited. But at the same time, can we understand that in the course of like reading the Bhagavatam and the different
Yeah.
prescribed readings, if we find prayers that completely
Yeah.
help us, then that's not like concocting, it's just
No.
reciting the prayers.
That's very nice. I mean, I remember. Yes, that's very nice to do that. I mean, but I remember there was one devotee. Anyway, he had some psychological problems. Who just had his whole sadhana every day of reciting the Shinga Kavacha prayers to protect himself, and he didn't deal properly with the devotees or anything like that. Ultimately, he had some trouble. So we don't really need to add something to our sadhana that Prabhupada didn't recommend. I mean, we read the prayers, we recite them. Reciting notable prayers is actually part of devotional service, which Prabhupada did recommend. But just to, add something, let's say, to the rules and regulations, that would be more specific. This is a rule. Everyone has to follow it. Everyone has to stay awake all night on the Ekadasi. I remember when that started to happen. And I had one friend who stayed awake all night on the Ekadasi following that rule because the only way he could stay awake was to invest in the stock market all night long. Otherwise, he'd fall asleep. And so, I mean, there's a tendency towards karma kanja thinking in relationship to devotional service. Some devotees like to tell that story that Prahlad Maharaj became Prahlad Maharaj because in his last life. I mean, it's there, but we don't know if it's a bona fide story in the Puranas or it's something added later. He became Prahlad Maharaj because in his last life he was arguing with his girlfriend, and because he was arguing with his girlfriend, he stayed awake all night long on the Chaturdasi, and thus he became a pure devotee. Now, I know a lot of people who stay awake, like doctors, who stay awake all night on Nishinga Chaturdasi, and they're not necessarily pure devotees. There has to be the association with pure devotees. Without the association of pure devotees, no one becomes Krishna conscious. I'm sorry. Okay, and then